Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about my two favorite palettes to use for oil painting. Hi, welcome to Paint Coach. I'm Chris Fornatero here to help simplify oil paint so you can get better, faster. Alright, so there are a ton of palettes out there that you can use. In this video I'm just going to show you the two that I like the most and that I use pretty much every single day when painting. Now remember, when I go over these and talk about different palettes, it's all what works best for you, what works best for the way you paint, what works best for you financially, what works best for you for the way you're set up. So just think about that when you're watching this video and seeing the palettes that I use. All right, the first palette I'm going to go over is my Turtlewood palette, and I know this looks like kind of like the stereotypical painting palette. And I actually didn't use one of these, like the kind you actually hold like this, for a very, very long time. And this is actually kind of recent. I got this about a year or so ago and I absolutely love it. This isn't very cheap. I'll put a link to the description to where I bought it. It's not that cheap, but I think it's definitely worth it, especially if you're doing portraits. Like I specifically use this in the beginning stages of my portraits when I'm painting standing up. I'm stepping a few feet back from the canvas, like every minute to check and making sure everything is right, and it just allows you have a lot of mixing space. You have a lot of space to mix paint. It's very lightweight. You hold it right next to you, so you're like everything is just right here. You can it's very close. That's kind of the downside with a lot of people that have palettes on like a table or something, is it's kind of far away from you, and the difference from looking down there to looking back up at your painting, it can make a difference. So I've really liked this for my portraits. When I'm first starting painting, blocking everything in, paint's right there. I'm mobile with it. I can step back, I can step forward. Colors are really, the palette's really close. I can see the colors, so I highly recommend this. Just make sure you follow the directions on cleaning it properly. And the downside to this palette though is you can't let the paint sit over here and get dry. Like, you really need to clean it every single time you paint. You cannot scrape paint off with a razor on this palette. You cannot do that. So it takes a little more discipline to clean it all the time. You can see I haven't done the best job keeping it clean, but it still works. But that is the Turtlewood painting palette, link in the description. Highly recommend it. All right, and this is the second palette that I use. This is my Parallel palette, and it comes with a lid here, which is very helpful. It doesn't fully keep your paints dry, but it definitely, I feel like, slows down the process of drying them. So I just keep it like that. It's put onto a tripod here. The tripod does not come with the palette. You have to get your own tripod. I'll put a link to where I got the Parallel palette in the description below. I really like this palette a lot, and I wanted to show it to you in use. Like, I didn't clean it up and everything to show you what it looks like. I wanted you to see what it looks like day to day and in action. So this is actually glass, so you can scrape it off with a razor. Take your razor, clean it, and this will also work if the paint is dry. Also, if you need to, you can always scrape out up here where you keep your colors. Just scrape that out. And so the glass actually can pop out, so you can really clean it all the way. Just slide it back in. It pops right in like that. This is a really popular palette. You've probably seen it online a lot. A lot of artists use it. The main reason it was designed like this is because of its parallel format, and that you can put it right next to your painting, and it makes a very easy color comparison. A lot of people do hyper-realism, use this so they can really match their colors to exactly. They'll have their maybe their reference photo of what they're using and their painting like right next to it, and so you can put it right next to your painting, which is the biggest advantage of this palette. If you have like a table palette or like Turtlewood palette, You can't really put it right next and really compare the color before you lay it down. So that's the biggest advantage to this. The disadvantage is, I think this is kind of a small space to mix color, and this palette's kind of made, I think, mainly for very detailed work. If you're trying to paint really big, really loose, with expressive brush strokes, this probably isn't the best palette. That's why I'll start off my portraits with the Turtlewood palette, but by the end I'll move to this. I'll actually sit down, give myself a break, and actually use this to really hone in and dial in like my values and details and stuff like that. I will move to this parallel palette, and you store your colors up here, mix your paint down there. It's very, very easy to clean. It's probably one of my favorite things about it is the paint can dry on here very hard, but since it's glass, take a razor, scrape it, it's good as new. All right, so those are the two palettes that I'm using right now. I'm gonna be honest, both these palettes are on the expensive side. Do I think they are worth it? Yes, I do. I think they're worth it because they will last a very long time, and they will make painting easier, and it will take away any resistance for you to paint. If you are comfortable when you're painting, if your materials are good and easy to use, it will make the initial act of sitting down or going and actually painting a lot easier, which will create you to practice more. And if you practice more, you'll get better more. So it is important. But if these are too expensive for where you're at right now, if it's like if you're just starting, you don't want to buy $100+ palettes, some really good options. The best, I think, is just get palette paper. That's what I learned. I used palette paper for years, and it's really good because cleanup's easy. You crumple it up and you throw it away. Don't worry about wasting paint. I mean, if you're using a palette paper, you shouldn't be using really expensive paint anyway. So don't worry about throwing away the paint at the end of the day, because that simple cleanup and simple setup will cause you to paint more often because you know how easy cleanup and setup will be. So a paper palette is really good. If you want a better palette, if you want like a more sturdier mixing surface, if you want to like upgrade a little bit from the palette paper, just find a piece of glass, any kind of tables that have the glass on them, or find a local glass cutting store, and say that you just need 9x12 or anything, 12x12, just a square that you feel is big enough for you of tempered glass, and have them cut it and round the edges, make sure it's not sharp, be careful, just make sure it's not sharp. You can actually find this a lot of times, a picture frame, take the glass out, use that. There's tons of videos on YouTube I've seen on artists taking just random glass from random things in their house and using it as a palette. And glass works great because it's easy to scrape the paint off, and you just put some kind of gray neutral paper. I remember one time I just took a piece of glass and I put the gray duct tape on the bottom of it, so it had a gray neutral color mixing surface. So that's a really helpful thing. Just find a piece of glass, could be free, could be really cheap, and you got a really nice palette there. Like I said earlier, there are links in the description below to where you can buy these palettes. I'll also put a link there to where you can buy the palette paper and all the other materials that I recommend using for first time or beginner oil painters. All of that will be in the description below. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.